Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in with us today. We are going to be talking about the new stimulus package that was recently passed. I don't know about you all, but I spent some time reading a couple articles this morning and my head was spinning. So I am happy to have an expert on the line with us today to help walk us through some of these provisions. With that, I am joined by my colleague, Sophie Rosman. Sophie is the head of financial solutions here at Brightside, which basically means she leads our financial content and our financial philosophy behind our product design. Sophie has been in the financial health field for over 17 years. And a fun fact about Sophie, she has worked at as a director at the US Treasury Department, which is the primary federal agency responsible for the stimulus provisions we're going to be speaking about today. So Sophie is uniquely qualified to walk us through some of the questions that I have. Sophie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to share some good news with our families.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy that I was tasked as the host here, because as I was reading through the stimulus kind of news this morning, I certainly had a number of personal questions that I'm hoping that you can answer for me, and hopefully others find that valuable as well. If you had to highlight, I mean, what's kind of the biggest difference between this stimulus package and the previous two that have been passed so far?
This stimulus is bigger and has more provisions that will mean more cash in the pockets of American families. So it is going to have a bigger impact on most people than the prior stimuluses did.
Sure. No, and I think the first thing people realize, when these stimulus packages and checks are passed is obviously the number. People received a $600 check, back in early January. Now it's $1,400, but there's a lot more that's in this stimulus package.
Yes, let's go through the provisions one by one, because each
Perfect.
provision is different when it comes to how much cash it will mean for you and your family. So let's talk about the stimulus checks first, or what's referred to as stimulus checks. The one-time payments for the one-time payments that are coming to families in order to stimulate the economy are going to be different, both because they're bigger. They're now $1,400 per adult and per dependent, which is higher than they were in the previous two stimulus rounds. And it's also different because more people are covered. So two examples of that are that your older relatives or college students will be eligible for that $1,400 payment, provided that you are claiming them as a dependent. Now, this stimulus won't be the same amount for everyone. There are income limits after which you'll start to receive a partial payment amount, and then there are ceilings after which you won't. But most adults will qualify for a stimulus payment.
Gotcha. So my wife and I, we've got two little ones at home. So, assuming we're within that phase out level or underneath that, I mean, we're looking at a pretty significant check here over the next coming weeks.
That's right. If you
Should go a
had
long way.
if you had two adults and two dependents, you'd be looking at $5,600.
And related to that, on the dependent side, I saw a provision in there as well related to the child tax credit for 2021. Can you walk me through what some of the changes were there?
That's right. So it's big news for people who have children that they can claim for the child tax credit. The child tax credit has been significantly increased to $3,600 per child under age 6 and $3,000 per child for children age 17 and under. There's also some big changes about when you're going to get to be able to take advantage of that 2021 credit. The biggest change is that you'll be eligible to start receiving partial payments against that amount during the year of 2021, whereas normally you would have to wait until the 2022 tax filing season. The IRS has not announced how exactly you will begin to receive that advanced amount. And so talk to your financial assistant so that you can continue to get ongoing information when the IRS does announce how to ensure you get your proper and full credit and how to ensure that it goes to the right bank account.
And I think separate from the child tax credit, there was also a provision in there about child care, correct? I assume that's different than the child tax piece of it.
It is. So it's good news because there is separately significantly more money for some of the expenses that families have when there are children. One of the expenses that has burdened many families this year is additional childcare expenses, particularly with so many schools remote and closed. So what Congress has done is it has increased an existing tax credit for qualifying childcare expenses, and it has increased those limits to a significant number. So $4,000 limit for one child and $8,000 for two or three. Now you must actually have qualifying expenses, and there are rules about what percentage of your qualifying expenses can qualify, and also how the credit may be reduced depending on your overall AGI. So talk to your financial assistant for personalized information so that they can set you up for success to claim the credit when you do file your taxes.
The thing that stuck out to me, and I wasn't having a ton of luck Googling this, was that there was a provision in there or something about now these payments are refundable. What does that mean?
So when a tax credit is refundable, it means that even if you don't owe taxes to the government, you still are able to claim the amount of the credit in the form of a tax refund. Historically, the child independent care tax credits and the child tax credit, both of which are beefed up in this round of stimulus, have either been not refundable or only partially refundable. And so what this bill did on a temporary basis is increase the amounts of those credits and also make them fully refundable. The net, all of that's sort of under the hood. What it net means for many families is that you could be seeing up to thousands more in your tax refund.
Yeah, and that's super helpful. And it feels like there's a lot in here for people with dependents, but there's also some stuff in here for people without dependents or children of their own. Specifically, I was reading about the earned income tax credit. Can you walk through what some of the advantages of that are for people?
Yes. So the law made the earned income tax credit for households that don't claim children or other qualifying dependents more generous. So this year, the maximum amount for a childless worker went from $543 to $1,502. They also are more generous on who can qualify. So now you can start claiming as young as age 19 as a worker. And they also took away the age limit. So workers 65 and older can now also claim. This is a credit that many people don't claim traditionally. So, please, we urge people to, talk to your financial assistant to make sure that you know of all of the important credits that you might be qualifying for. So when you go into tax filing, you're armed with the right information to maximize your credits and maximize your refund.
So the last year has been tough for a lot of people. And I saw that there were some changes on the unemployment front, not just from a taxable standpoint, but also it looked like there were some, maybe beefed up unemployment provisions that were thrown in there. Can you walk me through the unemployment piece of this?
That's right. So there's good news for a couple of groups of people. One group is people who have members of their household who are claiming unemployment currently. For that group, the amount of time that they're going to be eligible to continue claiming unemployment is increased to September of this year. And the supplemental amount of $300 a week that was above and beyond the normal benefits amount is also going to continue through September. The other piece that is relief for people who had any unemployment insurance income during 2020 is that there's a tax relief provision that says that under a certain amount, unemployment insurance will not be taxable. So talk to your financial assistant about whether or not this applies to your family or may apply to your family. And the IRS will be providing guidance about exactly what will happen for individuals who've already filed taxes this year, because some people already have completed and had to pay taxes on this, and now this change is retroactive. Your financial assistant will be armed with up-to-date information as the IRS releases new guidance about the process, so you'll be sure to know the latest on what's going to affect you. So there are other unanswered questions in the stimulus that where Brightside will be continuing to monitor the news and delivering up-to-date information to you as you work with your financial assistant about what relief is underway and what changes are happening to programs that might be relevant to you and your family. Here's a couple of examples of that. One is student loan debt. There's still a federal student loan moratorium in effect that President Biden extended through the fall. This bill contains a provision that lays the groundwork for future federal action to provide additional student loan relief. Namely, the bill makes forgiven federal student debt untaxable, meaning you wouldn't be hit with a surprise tax bill if the federal government were to decide to say your federal student loans are now forgiven. There is no plan announced by the White House. However, that is something that many people are watching. And Brightside will be able to tell you if and when any action is going to occur or action occurs with your student loans, so that you can plan to make the best choices for you and your family. Another area where there are still many questions is relief for renters. The bill has billions of additional dollars in relief for people who are struggling to pay their rent. Many people, because of the pandemic, are now possibly months behind on their rent, are facing eviction. This bill adds, among other things, $20 billion to a fund that supports direct cash assistance to pay for back and current rent to keep people in their homes. What hasn't been announced is exactly how that will be delivered. Rental assistance is done at the state and local level, and because of that, it's really critical that you call your Brightside assistant or chat with your Brightside assistant as soon as possible to apply and get in line to be a part of one of your local rental relief programs. They sometimes local programs also supplement federal funds that are available. So what is available can vary significantly locality to locality. So we will continue to follow that as the new information and rules and application processes emerge. And when you come to work with your financial assistant, you can rest assured that we will have up-to-date information on an ongoing basis.
I mean, having followed kind of this all for a while and being in the space for a while, was there anything in this stimulus package that surprised you or jumped out? You weren't expecting to see something like that?
Well, the sheer magnitude of it is the biggest news. It is probably the most significant financial news for most American working families in decades.
With your experience and background at the U.S. Treasury Department, how much of this, if any of it, do you think is going to become permanent?
So there are different answers depending on which provision you're talking about. Some of the provisions are designed to be temporary and respond to temporary needs created by the pandemic. So you have individual stimulus checks that's designed to be a one-off that can be repeated as needed in the future, but not to be ongoing.
Sure.
Similarly, extensions of unemployment and extensions of the supplemental unemployment payments are designed to be tailored to this particular economic disruption. However, there are some in Congress who've talked about other parts of the provisions that are temporary as laying the foundation for future expansions of support for working families. An example of that is the child tax credit, where some in Congress have said this plan for beefing up the amount of the payment as well as making it is something that they are seeking to continue in future years. But of course, that requires enacting legislation. So none of that can be banked upon by any family, but it's helpful to know that if you work with your financial assistant as legislation develops, we will be able to deliver the most up-to-date information about benefits that you can claim or tax credits that you can claim.
I guess just kind of lastly, for people that weren't expecting this nice little windfall, if you will, or support, any kind of general recommendations you would make to people on just how to, put this money to work, make it go further, or maybe help people out?
Sure. I guess my first thing I would say is that if you're finding it daunting, you're not alone. This is hard. It's complicated. Most people in Congress couldn't explain every detail to you. And that's because the tax code and provisions like unemployment insurance are quite complicated. So it's normal not to know where to start. And that's where Brightside comes in. What Brightside is here to do is make everyday financial decisions and really big financial complexity that life throws at you, like a giant new bill with changing tax laws, to make that easy for you. When you chat in or you call your financial assistant, that individual will listen to you, really understand your situation, and then use the information we have and the tools that we have to give you personalized guidance about how to optimize your choices, whether it's claiming benefits and tax credits like we just discussed, or making decisions about your personalized plan for how to use that money. What matters to you? Is it debt payoff? Is it putting it away in savings? Or is it paying for some of the critical things that you've had to put off that you might need to do now? So talk to your financial assistant, that they will listen to you and hold your hand every step of the way, whether you want someone to dive into a plan or you just need quick information to make a decision.
No, and that's a great point, because I think you can read, for hours on all the different stuff that's going on out there, and you can read what other people are doing with their money. But at the end of the day, finances are extremely personal. And I think, the benefit of reaching out to that financial assistant is it's going to be tailored specifically to your needs. Not everyone has two little girls at home with number 3 on the way in July. And so I'm going to have very different and specific needs than, someone without children or adult children. So it's nice knowing that I'm going to receive that type of tailored support,
That's
if you
right.
will.
And it's 100% confidential with a dedicated financial assistant professional who is trained in both all the things that you would expect financial planning support, a support person to understand, but also who cares about you and who knows how to listen and who knows that money is more than just numbers. It's about your feelings, it's about emotions, it's about what's going on in your life. And it's bigger than just facts and figures.
Sure. No, that's a great takeaway. And I do want to share with everyone too that Sophie was kind enough to outline her key takeaways and findings in a blog post, which you can access on our website at gobrightside.com. So if you had a hard time following along with some of the numbers we threw out at you, please take a look at that blog post if you're a reader like myself, or if you've got more personal questions, please reach out to your financial assistants. I can share I personally have reached out to them before, and they've been tremendously helpful and have also saved me a lot of money. So there's a lot of benefits to using that resource. And it's a free resource for you. Your employer has implemented Brightside as an employee benefit, so it doesn't cost you a penny to reach out and take advantage of that expertise. Sophie, thank you so much for your time. It was
Thank
really
you.
helpful. I could feel my head spinning this morning when I pulled up the first Yahoo article on this, and was super grateful that you had some time carved out to talk through this with me. And I hope others find it useful as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.